was a cover-up, and you say, what was he covering up specifically? And I don't know that I've heard an answer to that.
It doesn't matter for the left, because this is all a political narrative that has been contrived by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, that they paid for the Russia collusion narrative via the dossier, and they've been pushing this to try to delegitimize President Trump. There doesn't have to be a crime for them to continue this narrative. We saw that with Democrats saying there was collusion when there was never collusion to begin with, as told by Robert Mueller. But after watching the press conference yesterday, I don't know how to say it otherwise besides the fact that Robert Mueller is a hack. And we know that he's a hack because he gave Democrats exactly what they wanted, was more fuel to the fire of impeachment, because we have Jerry Nadler saying yesterday that they got everything they needed from Robert Mueller. They don't need to subpoena him. They don't want him to come testify before Congress anymore because they got what they needed. And also, think about it this way. Robert Mueller gave more deference to the Russians yesterday than he did to President Trump, because he said he wasn't going to talk about the Russian defendants behind the hacking, because he said that they're presumed innocent until proven guilty, and he wasn't going to talk about them, yet he didn't give President Trump the same deference.
Do you agree that, I mean, after all that investigation and that whole report in 440 pages and how he's conducted himself, you think Robert Mueller's a hack? I don't know that he's a hack.
Not a hack, but some of the Democrats yesterday, simply because he put voice to the words in the Mueller report, acted like he was the second coming of Jesus Christ, quite frankly. And I thought it was evidence that they never read the Mueller report in the first place. He didn't offer any new evidence in that statement. If you read the Mueller report, he was reading it. Essentially, he didn't say anything that was new, but all of a sudden, many of these Democrats are like, whoa, impeachment. I will add this, and I'll just quote from the Wall Street Journal editorial. If you read the Mueller report, which I did, Mueller's analysis of the obstruction evidence in his own report makes clear that no investigation was instructed, not the FBI's counterintelligence probe, not his own. No witnesses were interfered with. Mr. Mueller was allowed over 2 years to issue about 500 search and seizure warrants and interview anybody he wanted to, including anyone in the White House. The only person he didn't interview in person was President himself, who answered questions.
But how is he not a hack? What was the point of yesterday's press conference other than to fan the flames? How is he
I'd like to answer that. I think, quite frankly, you know, this guy puts out 400-plus page report, which I've also read, and I agree with you, Dagan, and you and I really agree that he was putting words, voice to the words that were on paper. The difference is what the American people,
over 400 pages that were released
what the American people heard is Attorney General Barr saying something different. And I think what he was saying is, look, let me clarify. This is what I wrote in my report. This is what I've said. And by the way, I'm stepping down. And I don't feel that Democrats said, oh, now we can impeach. They've been talking. The Democrats.
We had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime.
So that was special counsel Robert Mueller breaking his silence in the last hour, saying his office couldn't charge President Trump with a crime because of long-standing guidelines of the Department of Justice. Those remarks appearing at odds with what Attorney General William Barr said a few months ago, you remember, when he first addressed the release of the special counsel report. Here's what he told reporters then about his conversations with Mueller. Listen.
When we met with him, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I met with him on March 5th. We specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking the position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position. He was not saying that but for the OLC opinion he would have found a crime. He made it clear that he had not made the determination that there was a crime.
Let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. I mean, this discrepancy jumped out at all of us when we were listening. Is there any way to reconcile those two statements so that they both can be true? What Mueller said and what Barr said?
Let me start by saying I'd rather be OLG than OLC right now. My buddy Guy Benson has that role. There's no way to reconcile the discrepancy between the two. This is a he said. But this opinion of the OLC, and the OLC stands for Office of Legal Counsel. These are the legal gurus who do research for the Justice Department. When the Justice Department itself needs to know what the law is where it's unclear, they get an opinion from the OLC. This OLC report is dated October 16, 2000, and it says that a sitting president should not cannot, should not be indicted while still in office because of material disruption to his constitutional duties. Guess what happened 60 days later, in late November and early December of 2000? The Justice Department charged Bill Clinton with lying under oath and obstruction of justice. And guess what he did a month later, 2 weeks before George W. Bush was sworn in as president? Pleaded guilty to lying under oath. This wasn't done by indictment. It was done by what we call an information. That's the document that's filed when the government and the defendant agree on the allegations. That tells you that this OLC report is advisory only. It is not mandatory. It's there to use or it's there not to use, depending on what officials want to do. Now, why did Bob Mueller take to the microphones today? I don't know. But this was not good news for the president because he's ginned up all the Democrats to believe there must be a there. And it was a parting shot at his soon-to-be former boss, Bill Barr, who basically whitewashed what Mueller said in the four-page summary he distributed back in March.
Okay. Absolutely. Judge Napolitano, thank you for clarifying that.
Adler, your chairman, has been quite vocal. We'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to get your first thoughts on whether this helps or hurts Democrats.
That's a good question, and I really don't know. I think ultimately it's going to hurt them because, and I think part of their reluctance to move forward is knowing the other shoe's about to fall. The Inspector General has been looking into the genesis of this phony Steele dossier that was used by the highest-ranking officials in the Department of Justice, the FBI, our intelligence agencies, first to interfere with our own presidential election in 2016, and when they failed to succeed at that, then to undermine the constitutionally elected president. This is being investigated by the U.S. attorney. The relevant documents are being declassified, so there's going to be a lot of sunlight shed on this, not to mention the Senate Judiciary Committee under Lindsey Graham looking at it. So the other shoe's about to fall on this, and I think it's going to be devastating to the Democrats.
You know, Congressman McClintock, I'm so happy to have you on the program because this burning question was going on for me yesterday, and that is just simply this. If, in fact, you change the rules or change the law and we no longer have an independent counsel, we have a special counsel, is it time to revisit that look? When you have a situation where you didn't get a thumbs up or thumbs down necessarily on some of the issues, but what you got was toss it over to Congress.
Well, and I reject the premise that Mueller put forward that he could not recommend prosecution because a sitting president cannot be indicted. Well, that's horse manure. Any president can be indicted after they leave office. We paid Robert Mueller and his team $25 million and gave them 22 months to make a case against the president, and they didn't because they couldn't. And now he's trying to hide behind this pettifoggery of DOJ regulations. I find it disgusting, and it reinforces my position. He needs to come before the Congress and answer for his conduct.
So you don't think the whole notion of special counsel is broken? You just say that in this one, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in this particular instance, you need to hear from this former special counsel because he's quit, so we know he's former now.
I don't like the idea of any official who is accountable to no one, and that is essentially the special counsel. So I'm not really comfortable with that to begin with. But what I'm very uncomfortable about is Robert Mueller's conduct in that position, and now taking the stand that, oh, well, he's not going to take questions from the press. He's not going to take questions from the Congress. He's above all that. Well, I'm sorry, that's not the way this process works.
Well, it's interesting because he's about to become a private citizen. So it does change the game in terms of being able to subpoena him, I would think. I want to get quickly to Chairman Jerry Nadler and what he says about how it's now up to Congress to act, and get your reaction. Watch, please.
Special Counsel Mueller was unable to pursue criminal charges against the president because Department of Justice policy prevents a sitting president from being prosecuted. That policy, in my opinion, is wrong, but it prevented the special counsel from pursuing justice to the fullest extent possible. Therefore, as Mueller again highlighted this morning, it falls to Congress to respond to the crimes, lies, and other wrongdoing of President Trump. We will do so.
So what really caused it? Was it that there was no evidence, or was it what Chairman Nadler says in terms of, well, you couldn't prosecute it?
Well, good luck trying to prosecute obstruction of justice when the president, the administration did absolutely nothing to interfere with the investigation. They turned over more than 1 million pages of documents. They responded to every request that was made by the special counsel. The president even waived executive privilege and attorney-client privilege to allow Don McGahn to testify for 30 hours. And there was no underlying crime to begin with. So good luck making an obstruction case. I think that is ultimately why Mueller decided to punt, because he could not make such a case with a straight face.
Wow. And around we go. So appreciative to have you on to pull through it for us. Representative McClintock, thank you for your time.